Welcome to the Engerati studio. I'm Rose Bundock and I'm joined now by Andy Robinson, Chief Technology Officer at Networked Energy Services. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
The edge of the grid is becoming a brighter place, as in better monitored, better understood. With new technology, obviously that brings new opportunities. From your perspective, what are you seeing are the key new revenue channels for DSOs from this enlightened view of the grid?
Right. I mean, as you said, the advancements in smart metering technology, have been amazing in the last, 4, 5, 6 years. And so each new generation of product that we're bringing to the grid, both the meters and the data collectors, the infrastructure, the applications, there's an exponential increase in computing power. So we're now at the point where we can start to take advantage of that, beyond just the meter to cash, which has been always the focus with smart metering. So now we're starting to use the meters more as sensors, not just the metering side, and we're looking at what the meter to grid opportunities are. By that we mean, how do you use these sensors, in other ways besides just the billing reads and so on. So we've been working really in 3 key areas on that. One is what we call low voltage grid mapping. That's one key area. And that's where we're basically able to create a virtual visualization of the network topology. That's largely because of some of the technologies that we have in the field, particularly the PLC technology, but also because now of the capabilities of the meters to sense beyond just doing more than just the instrumentation. We're also looking and able to use those devices now for doing things like power flow analysis, which is very important. When you look at distributed energy resources, local generation, and in particular renewables. Because of the intermittent nature of the renewables, it's really important to be able to analyze the power flow on the grid, to know, when solar's active and energy's being, exported to the grid, and so on. And then the other focus is grid health. And there's we see some real benefits in being able to monitor grid health. What we're doing there, we're looking at, all the way down to the meter. We're able to look at what's happening almost in real time on the grid, whether it's, some sudden, power outage event, or it's a power quality event, and so on. And so those 3, when you combine those 3 applications, it's a very powerful tool for the DSO. It enables them to, start looking at their efficiencies, where their losses are. It allows them to be, more intelligent with their asset utilization, because they can see, if an asset is underutilized or if it's being, overutilized. And ultimately, what that leads to is, I think going forward is the ability also to do, predictive failure analysis, predictive fault analysis, and so on. So yeah, they're the 3 key areas.
So obviously in Europe we're seeing Italy, Sweden doing 2nd generation smart meter rollouts. What impact is that going to have on grid monitoring and opportunities?
Yeah, actually we see it as a great opportunity because, especially if you look at the Nordics with Sweden, they were an early adopter, and which has been great because they've got very mature systems now. If you look at the Vattenfall case, over 600,000 meters in the field for a long time. Their systems are very stable, and that's enabled us to basically focus more on what are the upside benefits, beyond just the meter to cash, because that's very stable now. They've already had their ROI, and we can now focus resources and use those stable grids to start looking at the benefits of beyond that. With the opportunity now coming to move to the next generation of meters, next generation of data concentrators, that's allowing us now to basically replace the older technology that was certainly very capable, but being able to now put in the next generation of technology just gives us so much more opportunities, just because of its you know, the computational power that those devices have.
I remember doing an interview with Alianda, and they were saying when smart meters were first proposed, they came up with numerous use cases, but obviously realised they had to boil it down to a few to get going. From your perspective, how many use cases are we seeing at the moment?
You know,
or likely to see?
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, we've been looking at, you know, early on the focus was absolutely on meter to cache, right? And with your first deployments, that makes sense. But I think early on we realized what the additional benefits could be. But as you said, you know, the focus had to be on the meter to cache, deploying the meters, you know, stabilizing the networks and getting it working reliably. I think now, you know, business case wise, I'm starting to see, you know, when I'm talking with our customers, you know, there's a real focus on operational, you know, the business cases related to operational efficiency. I mean, that's, you know, that's starting to be a real big focus. We talked about it, you know, when we were doing those early deployments, but the technology back then, you know, those first generations, you know, was partly a limiting factor on what we could do, even though we had the vision of where it could go. We're no longer limited now by the technology. That's not the case. And so you can see now, you know, our customers, utilities, we're working with DSOs. They really are starting to focus on, you know, operational efficiencies, analytics, all those things that can bring so much more to their business case, right?
Yeah, I mean, Engerati did a webinar with yourselves. Definitely check it out. It's a good one. With Vattenfall.
Yeah.
Yes, and the case study there. What would you say from your perspective as CTO, what were the key learnings for Vattenfall from that project?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the opportunity with Vattenfall was a great opportunity. Like I said, they've got a large deployment, and it's been working well now for a long time. You know, what that enabled us to do is being able to work very closely with Vattenfall like that. You know, it was enabling us to basically, first of all, you know, see how effective some of these early applications are that we have, but to really deploy it in the real world scenario, you know, enabled us to basically do, you know, enhancements to those applications, evolve them as we deployed more. We learned a lot more, you know, and that's part of the process with when you're introducing a new technology like this or a new application. It's all about getting as much data back as you can, as much experience as possible, and evolving the applications as you go. And with Vattenfall, you know, we were able to do that, and we learned a lot. In particular, you know, what we were looking at with Vattenfall is looking at the you know, we first mapped the grid, so we were using the grid mapping capability, and we were looking, okay, then we could compare with their GIS records, with their schematics, and we were looking, okay, what's the, you know, the accuracy of those? Has there been changes in the topology that weren't, you know, recorded back into their documentation? And that was a good step, and we did see issues there where GIS records didn't match with the virtual network that we were creating. And that was, you know, that showed that there was benefit there. I think some of the bigger benefits we saw actually was in the power flow. We were doing power flow analysis with Vattenfall. And that really allows you to see down to the meter level, the feeder level, how energy is flowing. You know, have you got unbalanced phases with energy, which is very disruptive, can be very disruptive to the DSO. And I think that's where we saw, with that particular you know, trial, we saw one of the key benefits. I think you could immediately see, okay, you know, we have a transformer where you know, one phase is more stressed than the others. It causes, you know, inefficiencies in you know, the delivery of the power, and it enabled Vattenfall to basically say, okay, you know, we can go out, we can reconfigure the network, you know, improve the balancing of the transformer, extend the life of the asset. So from that, you know, we started to, okay, develop new ideas on how we could do, you know, asset life management, for instance, right? And we started to evolve that with Vattenfall. And then, and we did grid health as well in that particular trial, and that was, we started looking at outages down to the meter level. Where that's helpful is, traditionally there's an outage. It can be sometimes quite difficult to know exactly where to send your team, right? I mean, you have maybe a feeder down or just a segment down. So they have to send a team. They have to go, try and kind of find where it is on the street or in the neighborhood. What we were able to do is actually take it right down to the house. If it was just a house that had a power failure or an outage, and again, demonstrated a significant improvement in efficiency, in operational efficiency, right? Because they were able to deploy a team and send them to a very specific location and find the fault far quicker, right? Which for the consumer is a huge benefit as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Andy. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
You've been watching the Engerati studio. You can watch plenty more of our videos on the Engerati channel on YouTube. Goodbye for now.